first started dating my wife, and she invited me to her parents' home and introduced me to her mom. He said, "Mom, he's vegetarian." And she's like, "Oh my God, what does he eat?" So my products, all three, like JoyScore and Health Score and Earth Score, they're all educational products. Mr. Trump, out of those 7 people, okay, why did I move Donald Trump to the top of the list? He is the most arrogant president we have ever had in this country. And the guy is so stupid. 7 people that I have named as the threat to human society, they really get me going.
So let me share a couple of things with you before we get back to our Earth Score for Happiness chapter. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Professor Joy podcast. Sadly, our friend Stephanie is not with us today, but I'm Gary Metzger. I'm your moderator of sorts. I'm a professor of journalism at California State University, Long Beach, and it would be nothing. I would not be here today without the man, the legend, the myth who created this JoyScore madness, Professor Joy.
Thank you so much,
Welcome.
Professor Metzger.
You are looking brilliant.
Oh,
today.
thank you.
Brilliant.
You have a way of complimenting.
I do, and I enjoy it every single time I talk to you.
Thank you.
So, Professor Joy, before we get into the meat of the issue, if you will, I would like to share with you that today, and everybody, today is the 2nd of February.
Yes.
There is a significance, Professor Joy, to the 2nd of February. It is Groundhog Day.
Oh, yes.
It is Groundhog Day, Professor Joy.
Yes.
And just so you know, Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow, scampered back into his hole, which means we will have 6 more weeks of winter.
Oh.
Now, Professor Joy, that got me thinking. What sort of research has been done on Punxsutawney Phil and its relationship to joy?
Very interesting.
It has been. So let me share a couple of things with you before we get back to our Earth Score for Happiness chapter. Now, these are research articles, honest to goodness research articles, Professor Joy. How Punxsutawney Phil's predictions affect the stock market. A Groundhog Day analysis. With its roots dating to 1887, Groundhog Day has cemented itself as a beloved American holiday where people gather to see if Punxsutawney Phil will predict 6 more weeks of winter or an early arrival of spring. So these authors, utilizing the data and methodology framework, they wanted to test if Groundhog Day predictions have any effect on the Standard & Poor 500. So, the findings show that there is absolutely no statistically significant returns under either prediction. None whatsoever. Another research, Professor Joy, talking about Groundhog Day. And by the way, did you know that the original animal was the bear?
Oh, really?
Yes. The original animal was the bear, based on its emergence from a cave that renewed it from its wintry little death. And then it progressed and went down to the lowly groundhog. But it started with the bear.
Wow.
Now, see, I'll bet you didn't know that.
No, I didn't.
This is something that you learned today. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
Professor Joy. So, in this research, these researchers wanted to see the collective success of groundhog prognostications because they had never been rigorously tested. So, of 530 unique groundhog year predictions across 33 different locations, spring onset was correctly predicted by groundhogs exactly 50% of the time.
Wow.
No singular groundhog predicted the timing of spring with any statistical significance. There were some groundhogs that had some notable records, like Essex Ed in Essex, Connecticut, Stonewall Jackson in Wingate, New Jersey, and Chuckles in Manchester, Connecticut. They correctly predicted spring onset over 70% of the time. But two of the most famous long-tenured groundhogs, Wharton Willie in Canada and our own Punxsutawney Phil, only had success rates of 54% and 52%, despite more than 150 collective guesses. So, there's really no significant to their predictions. Nothing statistically significant to it at all.
Proves it, right.
Yeah. So happy Groundhog Day.
Thank you.
There's a ton of research done on the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, but a scant amount done on Groundhog Day properly. So I thought I would get that out of the way because I know
that's good.
that
Thank
you were dying to know about Groundhog Day today, since it is February 2nd and everything. So, but Professor Joy, to get to the real thing, you know how some people say you are what you eat?
Yes.
I think some people also say you are what you wear. And that brings us to the point of sustainable self-care. The things that you shop for. You shop for clothes, you shop for accessories, household goods. And people, we believe, should consider the significant environmental impact that can be made depending on the food or even the clothing that you wear. Why did we decide to include this chapter in the JoyScore book?
Well, anything that we as individuals do in our life, what we buy, what we wear, what we eat, and on, it has a significant impact on sustainability. Now, clothing, more and more today as compared to 50 years ago, more and more is synthetic. In earlier days, we would find natural fibers, products like from cotton and things like that, and now it's all becoming synthetic more and more and more. Food also. Did you know that the biggest challenge the medical industry has today in terms of keeping people well is the processed food? The processed food makes people very, very, very sick. So now, for 100 years, we mastered the science of processing food, meaning we went from natural foods to processed food. And you know, this country, US, is at the top of the list of countries who know how to process food. And processing food, the two things which really hurt it the most, or our bodies the most, is the addition of sugar and salt. And the concept of processing food is to be able to sell more of it. It's a capitalist society's thinking, how can we sell people more food and have them eat more food? Can you believe that?
Yeah.
I mean, here, other day, your research showed that 70% of the people in this country are obese. Now, how did that happen?
Right.
It goes back to the processing of the food. So, in a way of thinking, processing of food, synthetic fibers, clothing, products we buy, all of it is adding to what I call the load on environment. We are moving more and more away from the sustainable environment. We're just becoming more artificial, more processed, more synthetic, more this, more that.
There were some staggering statistics, I thought, in this chapter. For example, the fashion industry produces more than 80 billion garments annually. And a typical American, Professor Joy, discards 81 pounds of clothing every year. Producing a single cotton t-shirt consumes more than 700 gallons of water.
Really?
Yes. That is
It's
staggering.
from
a
producing.
single cotton t-shirt.
So that is from producing cotton.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
That's that high?
Yes. 700 gallons of water. Yeah.
It's hard to believe, but if it is, I can't argue.
Professor Joy, since 1988, the United States has consumed about 27.4 billion disposable diapers annually. This plastic requires approximately 500 years to break down.
Oh my God. We are causing so much damage to the environment. In fact, as a young architect years ago, I read a book called Design with Nature. And the whole idea was to be sympathetic to nature in terms of designing buildings. And now you're talking about clothing, It's the same thing, The clothing should be designed with keeping nature in mind.
Yeah.
Sustainability in mind.
I mean, I'm sure you'll agree. I mean, it's staggering to me that, once again, we're in a drought in the state, in California and everything. And to think that one single cotton t-shirt uses that much water is just really, really something. Really something.
Did you know that we had recent fires? Okay.
Yes.
But did you know that they were not able to fight the fire because they did not have enough water? All the reservoirs were dry. So the state really, now they have come up with ideas of how to make sure we have enough water. It's too late now.
Right. Well, I hope you saw that our president
Yeah.
opened up a couple of dams in Tulare County
Yeah.
to bring some water and
Yeah.
everything. So.
Well, that's what they're saying. He was a little late in responding.
But
to
it is. It's too late. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Donald Trump is always a day late and dollar short.
Wow. How about this? Today, 77% of all agricultural land is dedicated to meat and dairy products, leading to increased deforestation and ecological degradation. A 16-ounce ribeye steak requires about 2,400 gallons of water to produce, which is roughly equivalent to 6 months of bathing.
Wow. Really?
Really. This is from our book.
Now, I can't always remember the statistics, but it's a very simple fact that producing meat costs a lot more in terms of water than producing vegetarian food. Comparison wise, like the
Very
same thing,
much so.
if you take vegetarian meal versus steak meal, the proportion of water it takes to produce vegetarian meal and steak meal is hugely different.
Yes. But Professor Joy, now the plant-based like chicken and
Right.
things like that. That is coming under scrutiny
Uh-huh.
because of the process that they use, the processing of these plant-based. That's now coming under scrutiny.
Yeah, but you're talking about the plant-based meats.
Yes.
I'm talking about plants, just vegetarian, like vegetables and fruits. Because, when I first started dating my wife, and she invited me to her parents' home and introduced me to her mom. He said, "Mom, he's vegetarian." And she's, "Oh my God, what does he eat?"
Oh my gosh.
She had no concept that there are people out there, vegetarians, who don't eat meat.
Oh my gosh. Professor Joy, in my research for this chapter, I was interested to find that Google listed more than 43,000 articles related to the topic about sustainability and self-care. And it included shopping for cars. And that was called the Prius effect. Because the Prius was a hybrid,
Right.
things like that.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting. So, but research on sustainable clothing shopping and its connection to happiness often explores themes like consumer behavior, ethical consumption, and the psychological impact of sustainable practices. So, there's mindful consumption. This can lead to a greater appreciation of items, potentially enhancing feelings of contentment and reducing buyer's remorse. Social and environmental impact. Research indicates that consumers feel happier when they perceive their purchases as contributing to social and environmental good.
Absolutely.
Consumer identity. Many individuals derive happiness from their identity as conscientious consumers.
Uh-huh.
This can create a positive feedback loop where sustainable choices reinforces a self-image aligned with environmental stewardship and social responsibility. And then finally, membership in sustainable communities. Participating in communities that advocate for sustainability can foster connections and friendships which are vital for overall happiness.
Yeah. So, I've been working on this project for over 40 years. And what I learned is not that people are unwilling to be environmentally friendly. Is they just don't know how to.
I think that's a really important point
Yeah.
that you just made.
Yeah. So my book is really designed to educate people. In fact, most of my life I have been a professor and teacher. So my products, all three, like JoyScore and HealthScore and EarthScore, they're all educational products. They're educational apps, educational books, to help people understand the meaning of JoyScore, HealthScore, and EarthScore. So EarthScore deals with sustainability, how to not destroy this planet, because at the rate we are going, we won't have a planet to live. It'll be gone and destroyed because the ozone layer is disappearing. I mean, if you really think of just not even 100 years, just even 10 years, what we have done is mind boggling. And unless we become sensitive to it, and I have to make a point here that sometimes the leadership, like people like Donald Trump, he has no clue of what sustainability means. This guy is such an idiot, to be honest with you.
This is a guy who pulled the U.S. out of the climate change.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't care about anything. He only cares about himself and how much money he can make as a president. Now, I think you must be tired of listening to me complain about 7 people.
I never get tired. I never ever get tired of hearing the complaints about these 7 people. Never.
So, Mr. Trump, out of those 7 people, okay? So you had asked me if my ratings have changed.
I did.
Okay. He's gone to the top of the list now. Why? Let me explain. He is by far the most powerful person in the world. As the president of this country, he literally is the president of the world. All the countries look up to it. And he is the most ignorant person who has ever been a president of this country. I mean, I'm not talking about degrees and education. I'm talking about ignorance. So, did you know, there is a relationship between ignorance and attitudes. So, people who have ignorance, they have an attitude toward the world which is not very promising, because as people become more educated or more aware of facts, they become humble. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah, in fact, and I have kind of watched it in my own life and people around me and at the university. So people, when they're very educated, and some people really make fun of people who have PhDs, because who gives a fuck about a PhD, But that's not true. People who are highly educated are generally the most humble people. And the reason for that is the more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. The most arrogant people are the ones who are the least educated. It's the fact. In fact, you can pretty much tell. I taught in my department classes which were very early on as they came in, like two-dimensional design, which is like the first core class they had to take, which was the prerequisite to everything else in the program. And then I taught the thesis class, So you go from very early stage class to very senior level class. And their attitude, the difference in the way of thinking is amazing, unbelievable. These kids coming in with two-dimensional design class, they don't know anything about design yet. But they're so arrogant. I mean, if you dare to criticize anything they did, they have tears in their eyes and they're ready to kill you. As these kids go into the thesis level classes and projects, they're hungry for feedback. You give them anything and they want more of it, So the thing is that education and arrogance have two opposites, When people become more educated, they become humble. And when they're not educated, they're very arrogant. So, why did I move Donald Trump to the top of the list? He is the most arrogant president we have ever had in this country. And the guy is so stupid. I mean, do you know that he, with his criminal record, could not get a job in a federal government, in a federal office? He would not. He would not get the clearance. He would not get the clearance to be able to hold a job in a federal office. The guy's he's a felon.
He is. He's a convicted felon.
Okay, how do you infect any federal job prohibits you to have if you're a felon? I mean, how did this big guy become the president? This is so unbelievable. Okay, so all those other 6 people now have moved down in the list, and he's moved up because now he's become, as a convicted felon, the president of this country, the most dangerous man, the least educated. I mean, I can't believe that he should not have any position in any federal government. And to be running this country is absolute shame. Now, last term he had, he only made a fool of himself in this country. Now he's making a fool of himself in the world. You know the guy from, what's the country where Greenland is part of?
Iceland?
No.
Denmark?
Yeah, Denmark. So the guy from there, he said, and this was in the news.
Yeah.
He said, I want the president of this country to know that Greenland is not for sale and you need to fuck off. he said, it's recorded in the news. He said, you need to fuck off. The guy's an idiot. He wants to buy Greenland. Who the fuck is he? He wants to change the name of the Bay of Mexico.
Yeah, Gulf of America. Do you know that Google already has done that? Google has changed. If you go to Google Maps and everything, it says Gulf of America.
You're kidding.
I am not kidding you. I am not kidding you. Google changed it. So, yeah. Well, just remember, he's a real estate guy, right? So he's trying to buy.
Come on, he made a promise to the people in the world, or in this country, that I'm going to bring the price of everything down. He is not going to bring the price of
not with
anything.
the tariffs he just enacted.
Nothing. This guy is not going to do anything for anybody except for himself. Do you know that he's already increased his wealth few times? He's only about, the thing which I kind of keep talking about, these 7 people are going to die the death of animals. Like Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi.
Yes.
They were found dead in the gutters. Why? They were the wealthiest people in the world. They died in the gutter. Worse than a dog's death. Animals have more better treatment when they die than these animals like Donald Trump and those 6 others,
Well, I bet Donald Trump doesn't wear sustainable clothing or anything like that.
The guy doesn't know anything about sustainability. Would he pull us out of the pact if he knew anything about sustainability? He doesn't have a clue about anything in the world, Only thing he understands is how to make money for himself. If he could find a way to sell this country for money, he will. If he could sell White House and put money in his account, he will. The guy's a scumbag.
Yes. And I hope he'll see this video.
I hope I don't get in trouble for calling.
I hope you don't either. I don't want to find you in a gutter anymore, Professor Julie. Oh my gosh. Oh wow. What a closing. My goodness gracious.
I'm sorry people out there for getting emotional. I just have normal human emotions, and when I see people like that, 7 people that I have named as the threat to human society, they really get me going.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And with that said, I think we'll close this week's episode of Professor.
Before we cause
Joy.
any more
My
damage.
We hope to see you next week. It is Super Bowl Sunday next week.
And we'll keep it more civilized next time.
We'll try. I can't promise anything, but we'll try to keep it civilized. I hope you have a great week. And we will see you right back here next week for another heart-pounding, emotional episode of the Professor Joy podcast. Thanks for joining us.